Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, I am Sherri Green. I'm a licensed real estate agent in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. I'm also licensed in the state of Virginia, and my channel is dedicated to educating you about the real estate market. If you are new here, make sure you subscribe and click the like button so you don't miss anything that is coming from my channel regarding the housing market. So a month ago, I did a market update, a market snapshot, and I promised in that video that I would keep doing these. So here we are a month later, and I want to show you what the data says. And has it changed much, or are we in the same place? So let's jump right in and look at our home demand index. So this is our home demand index, which if you watched last month's video, this tells you the demand for homes in our area. And this is the overall picture. Today is September 27th, so we haven't quite gotten to the end of September yet, but this gives you an idea of how we are doing so far for the month, and it will give us a little bit of a comparison as to what happened last month. So last month, if you remember, we were at a moderate level of demand overall, and we are now at a steady. So we have kind of landed right there in the middle of the market. This doesn't surprise me one bit. August is typically a slower month for the real estate market in Washington, D.C., and in a lot of places around the country because people are taking a vacation, a holiday, they're trying to get ready to go back to school. There are just a lot of things that are bubbling up in people's personal lives, and if they don't have to sell or buy and move, they don't. And that's what we have seen this August. So similar to what we had experienced pre-pandemic, we had a sleepy little August, sort of. So we were down to a moderate, if you want to call it down to a moderate level in our home demand index overall. So let's scroll ahead and look at some of the more specific areas that I think you'll find of interest. So we talked about the single family homes below 395 last month, and we talked about the home demand was low, and we talked about why. Rising interest rates, a little bit of the economic discussion in the news, and this puts a little bit of a pinch on this sector of the market. We also talked about the HPAP program, which kicks in October. So we'll start to see, hopefully, some change in this area once we get into November, December, January, and we'll certainly keep an eye on that and talk about it in one of the future market videos. But for this month, what we can see is that the inventory has gone up slightly. And that's what I really want us to focus on in this particular month's video, is the inventory, because that's something we've all been hoping to see more of. And I want to compare it to last month to see if we are really seeing an increase in that inventory. I'm feeling it, but I want to see what the data is telling us as we go through the numbers. So we have seen a slight tick up in inventory in this particular category. So that is some good news for people who are still out buying. Home demand can be limited, but when you're the buyer, you want to see something that makes sense for you. And with inventory up, that is great news. So when we move into the single family home that's 395 to 950, we're still in that moderate demand level, and we have seen inventory go up slightly again. So we were at 1.6 months of inventory last month. We're now at 1.7. So there is that little bump in that increase, which can really help you to find the right property if you are looking. Single family homes above 950. Now here we're seeing high demand. We talked about this last month. These are typically buyers who aren't as affected by what's happening with interest rates or what's happening in the economic situation of our country. A lot of them have cash, or a lot of cash to be able to put down for a larger down payment, and that can affect the mortgage that they pay in a positive way. So they're not as concerned necessarily, so their demand has remained really high. When we look at inventory, it's the exact same. It was 1.9 months of inventory last month, and here we are again. So that hasn't gone anywhere, and our demand has remained really high for this home buyer category. Condos below 750. Last month, we were at the exact same number for inventory. We have a steady demand for this price range of condos, and we have the same months of supply, 2.1. So that's sitting right where it was. Condos above 750, we have a high demand. Again, this is that buyer who isn't as affected by what's happening. Now, we are down slightly, which is very interesting, right? In the months of inventory. So last month we had 3.3 months of inventory. Now we only have 3. That probably speaks to the demand. The demand is high, so inventory is moving off our market a little bit faster for this particular category. When we look at townhomes, row homes, we have a lot of row homes in DC. We are up slightly in inventory. Last month we had 1.7 months of inventory. We are now at 1.8. Home demand remains steady, and then our inventory has moved up just slightly. So that's good news that we are seeing a little bit of a bump in inventory, which everybody has been looking for. What's going to be really interesting is when we look at October, how does that show that September performed for us in terms of inventory? So I think this last couple of weeks of September, we've started to see more and more inventory, and that will be reflected when we do this video again in another 4 weeks. The next thing I want to show you is the market snapshot of Washington, D.C. And I think that this is a really interesting thing for us to look at too, because it talks about home pricing, which is another thing that everybody is always asking. Are prices rising or are they falling? And what we are seeing is they are down 14% from what we've talked about before. This is based on June, July, August, and September, and they're compared to the previous 3 months. So what we're seeing here is that the average sales price has gone down, which doesn't surprise me at all. Interest rates have continued to rise, and that has affected some buyers in what they will purchase, how much they will pay, and therefore we've seen less competition in some cases, and therefore we've seen some prices start to drop. And when I say all of this, it's always very relative to what we are looking at. So any property could bunk all of this if it's amazing, if it's priced well, if it's in a great neighborhood, if all of the upgrades have been done, if it's presented beautifully in its marketing, all of this could change. So it could have still seen multiple offers and could still see a price point that goes above its list. But in a general sense, this is what we are looking at, is that pricing has come down. The sales price to list price ratio has come down, but the average list price has gone up. So what we're seeing is that the pricing to list a property was still going up, but we're seeing the sale price of those properties start to level out and start to come down, which is what we sort of expected and talked through a little bit last month as well. I hope this is interesting to you to kind of get a quick snapshot of what's happening in the market, what's happening in DC. If you are still listening and you hear the beeping outside, I'm sorry. Today, the city decided to give me a whole brand new street. So they are chewing up the concrete outside and putting down new concrete. And sometimes it's quiet as a church mouse, and other times it just sounds like there's something really crazy going on outside of my window. I'm so glad you are here on my channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, please make sure that you do. My channel is dedicated to educating you on the real estate market in DC and Northern Virginia. I have videos related to the market, videos related to my listing, and videos related to buying and selling, and I'd love to have you follow along.